Hey, F5 community, Aubrey here with DevCentral, and I'm joined today by Steve Wilson, who is heading up OWASP's project for the top 10 for large language models. If you're not familiar with what that is, that has to do with AI security at this point. So we want to get a couple of quick questions out there and educate the community. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Steve. How you doing, Steve?
Excellent. Thanks for having me, Aubrey.
Absolutely. I'm happy to have you. We want to make sure our community is educated to the best they can be. So I guess a couple quick, simple questions just to get out there. What is a large language model for those people that are hiding under a rock and haven't used ChatGPT yet? And why would someone need to secure that?
Yeah, well, you said it, right? It's the technology underlying this new generation of chatbots and associated helpers. And for folks out there in the developer community, you may be encountering it as a technology under things like GitHub Copilot. Other people are interacting with it through ChatGPT. But really relevant to this discussion and what we're doing with OWASP is people all over the world are using the APIs into something like OpenAI or working with some of the other vendors like Google or Amazon that are now providing this, or even getting open source large language models, and they're embedding them into their applications. They're basically building their own co-pilots. What you start to realize when you look at it is, while they're fabulously powerful, they're also incredibly dangerous, and people haven't really thought through the security implications of using that technology and attaching it to other parts of your enterprise. And so that was really the genesis of this list. OWASP is famous for these top 10 list of security issues. It started with top 10 for web 20 years ago and have gone on to do things like mobile and API. So back in May, I proposed putting together a top 10 list for large language models. And we put together an amazing expert team of like almost 500 people and just got out the first version of the list.
Awesome. Now, I know there are a lot of people that have this kind of belief that, okay, these AIs are not actually on the internet, whatever that means, even though we go to a website to use them. So I guess if they're not on the internet, so to speak, why is there still a security need?
Well, first off, remember what we're talking about is embedding these into your own application. So the first thing you're probably going to want to do is attach it to either the internet or your corporate network to give it access to data. And there are a number of places where your LLM could be interacting with untrusted data sources. That could be as simple as what people are sending to your chatbot. And the first top vulnerability on the list is something called prompt injection. And people who've been doing AppSec for a long time probably recognize injection attacks for things like SQL injection or command injection or log injection, like our old friend Log4j. But prompt injection is pretty unique because basically everything you're doing is sending unformatted, untrusting data back and forth between the outside world and your chatbot. And then potentially you're hooking it up to your systems to try and use the natural language processing capabilities to give you, say, powerful search or access data that is important to you and your customers. And that's really where the security concerns come in.
Okay, that's reasonable. I know a lot of our customers are going to be wondering what this does to their tech stack. That's a big thing, right? Are there going to be new technologies they need to deploy or employ, and what kinds of new methods would they need to be aware of? I know this may be a broad question, but
I think what you're going to start to see is a couple of the kind of control points for traditional application security will grow and evolve in this space. So if you think about it, you've got a couple of avenues. And for people who are F5 customers, you're probably thinking about, hey, can my web app firewall help with this? The answer today is probably not, but it probably will start learning to soon. And there are also various open source projects and things where people are putting together proxies of different type to try and help kind of filter the data coming into and out of your large language model. On the traditional AppSec side, if I'm trying to do application security testing, the company I work for, Contrast, following on from the launch of the OWASP list, the number one thing was prompt injection. So we added Open API as a supported framework to our IAST product and put in some rules to help find kind of vulnerable coding patterns that could leave you particularly exposed to prompt injection. And so I think you're going to see things like web app firewalls and RASP rules and things like that that are going to try to help at runtime. And you're going to see more of the testing tools kind of growing to understand this whole area.
I think there are a lot of people who I've talked to, at least, that are wondering if they're going to have to deploy AI to combat this AI.
There's no question that what's going on right now is we have entered into an AI arms race where the bad guys are using AI. Let's be frank, the good guys have been using AI for years now, right? We've been building user behavior analytics and things like that into our defense stacks. But these new large language capabilities with the ability to get a pre-trained model that understands English and Python and Java and Chinese and all of these things kind of out of the box gives you a whole new set of tools, both for offensive and defensive security uses. So going to be a big shift happening in the next kind of 6, 12, 18 months.
I believe it. I'm on the sidelines with like a get your popcorn meme waiting. If someone wants to get involved, how do they get involved to help with the project, and what kind of stuff is needed?
Yeah. So just having put out the first version of the list last week, there's kind of some immediate follow-ons that we're doing. We're doing localizations and things like that now. Actually, of all languages, I think the guys were telling me we haven't found somebody to do Spanish yet. So if you want to hop in and help with things like that, I got Japanese and other things covered, but there's always more room for that. But what we're going to be doing over the next 6, 12 months is following on with updates to the list. We're kind of planning a 1.1 in a couple months because I think we're already starting to get feedback, people coming in and filing issues on our GitHub site. They see problems or suggestions or things they want to get involved in. And then working up to some bigger, even more comprehensive version of the list next year where we have a lot more data around what's really happening. But if people want to get involved, if you just go search Google for OWASP top 10 for LLM, you'll wind up right at our project site. We've got a number of Slack channels on the OWASP Slack workspace. That's where we're doing most of our collaboration, as well as on the GitHub site that we have. So we'd love to have people kind of jump in and just become part of the community.
Awesome. That sounds great. I know we can probably include a link to all pertinent sites as well on the video when we post this. So
awesome.
I guess that actually probably wraps it up for me today, Steve. Thank you so much for taking the time to educate the community today.
Hey, thanks for having me on. This was great.